Hello and welcome to West Wales. In this week's vlog I got a charity shop haul, there's a new plant for the garden and I'm going to be harvesting the weld. If you're new here, my name is Becca and you're very welcome to my local woodland in West Wales. If you're an old friend, welcome back. I've just finished this week's supermarket shop, so I'm back along the A40 and on my way home I'm going to stop at the charity shop, see if they've got anything good. In my last vlog I mentioned that I had bought a sewing pattern for a blouse, and so I finished the weekly shop, back up the A40 home, and there is a charity shop on the way, so they do sometimes have fabric. I'm just gonna go and see if they've got any fabric. Otherwise I think I'm gonna have to go over to possibly Newport and just see if they've got anything I like. I need 2 meters. I am really thinking I'm going to actually design the fabric myself and buy my own design, but before I do that I sort of want to see if I actually still remember how to sew a blouse. So I'm looking for something that's going to be, it's going to be okay if I make a horrid mistake. If I buy some of my own fabric and make a blouse, firstly it's going to be not the cheapest fabric in the world, because spoon fabric is not cheap, but then it's, you know, it's bespoke fabric, so you wouldn't expect it to be cheap. But I don't want to spend that money and then just mess up the sewing, because I've done so little sewing over the last few years. Anyway, so that is the cunning plan, and I will take you along to the charity shop, and at the end of the video we'll have a little look and see what I found. This shop is sort of the big hub for the main charity collection for this charity in Pembrokeshire, and then they sort of distribute out to their smaller shops, and it's always got lots of really good furniture, so I like to have a good look round, see if there was anything good. And I spotted a rug which might be a possibility, I don't know, not sure. Am I a Chinese rug sort of person? Who knows? Anyway, so a good old fertle about, just seeing what was what and keeping my eye out for some fabric. What really caught my eye with this beautiful little coffee set, and this is Wedgwood. I mean, really it was beautiful, but where on earth am I going to put it, and when would I use it? So I had to walk away from it, although I really liked it. More yarn, I need no more yarn in my life, so again I walked away from that. I will share what I did pick up at the end of the video. So I'm just sitting inside the car, so I'm out of the wind because it's really windy today. I am about to film B-roll for the dyeing video, and B-roll basically just means not the talking head stuff, so the kind of the long shots and the detail. Anything where I'm not actually looking at the camera and talking is known as B-roll. So I'm filming a bit of B-roll, and the wool is scouring at the moment, and then I will mordant it, but I'm going to do a cold mordant and also just create the dye bath. But I will film all that so that it'll either be Tuesday evening or Wednesday morning that video will come out. I'm not quite sure when. Depends when I kind of get all the filming and editing done. So that is what I'm doing. I then have quite a lot of jobs to do. There is the endless ironing, of course, but I think I will spare you the ironing. I have done ironing videos. I don't think I'm going to do an ironing video this week. Probably don't need to see that. A dog needs walking, food needs cooking, you know, house needs cleaning, all those exciting things. And then I also want to do some artwork because, yeah, I'm sort of, I'm carrying on with designing for fabric. So I do actually have to do some more artwork. I had a lot of artwork already done. And what I'm finding is the watercolour stuff, it just is not working with fabric, so I need to rethink it. And now the dog's barking at me. Anyway, I'm going to carry on with my filming and I'll see you in a little bit. I've harvested all the weld and I've put what I'm going to dye with is soaking, and then the rest of it I'm going to put in the dehydrator and dehydrate it and dry it for dyeing with a bit later in the year. So this is 200 grams of chopped weld in rainwater, and that will make my dye bath. And this is what's left after I've taken that out. So now that I'm going to put in the dehydrator. So this dehydrator is left over from when we used to have a food business. And bear in mind that we have lived here for 8 years, and Andrew had a stroke 10 years ago. It has got to be 20 years old. And it's still going strong, really. We don't dry food in it anymore. We kind of dry, well, rose petals. Lots of random things. I dye quite a lot. I dry quite a lot of dye materials in here. So what I'm going to do is do a layer like that. Then put in another one. It doesn't use very much electricity at all. So I'm going to put it on quite a low temperature, so the temperature you'd use to dry herbs. Then I have left 2 plants in the garden that will be full seed for next year. Well, it'll be 2 years' time because it takes 2 years. Don't know what that is. That's not a bit of weld. Right, okay, so and put this on and turn it on low and come back in several hours. Millie and I have just come back from our walk, and we walked down the steps and there was our delivery for a rose. So let's go and have a look and see what it looks like. I think it's going to need some water. It's a David Austin rose, and it is a climbing rose. Pull to open. Oh, okay. Are you sure? Ah, tear here. Right. Here it is. It is a climbing rose, and it is called Warm Welcome. I'm going to put that in place and give it a water. It is blowing an absolute hoolie. I wanted to show you planting the rose. However, it is so windy up there that I think it just is going to be impossible. So I did think I would just do a garden tour, but I don't know that, sorry, I'm being distracted by the dog. I don't know that I can really film one effectively. I will just show you sort of how the roses are looking, because they are just coming into bloom and they are looking fantastic. But as for actually filming planting, I don't think it's actually very practical. Anyway, let's go up the steps and see how the roses are looking. So this is the new rose that we've just put in, and kind of cut away a little bit of the lawn, slowly nibbling the lawn away. But anyway, it's planted and it's got lots of lovely buds. So I'm hoping that very soon it's going to be in flower. So it rained overnight, but we've had so much wind, the whole garden is bone dry again. And I tell you, planting that rose, I had to sort of excavate it like the archaeologists do. I've been re-watching Time Team, and they've put all the old Time Teams out on YouTube, and I've been re-watching them, so I was like kind of using my archaeologist skill to kind of excavate stones and goodness knows what else was in that ground. But anyway, roses planted. I am going to have to just water and water and water because evaporation from the wind is unreal. Well, as promised at the beginning of the video, I'm going to show you the little thrift haul. It wasn't huge. I found a few bits and pieces, but I don't just buy for the sake of buying things. I only buy things that I actually need and I'm going to use. Otherwise, it's a waste of money and resources, and I just don't really have the space for things that I'm not going to use. Anyway, so a few bits and pieces. So let's start with the first one. And here we go. So a lovely, lovely pale blue mixing bowl. It was £4, and I had actually broken my, oopsie, nearly dropped that one. I'd broken my glass one, so I was in need of a new one. And I found that and I thought, my goodness, I bet that cost an awful lot of money when it was new. So I'm very pleased with that, really like the colour. And my kitchen is blue and yellow, so that's going to work really well. And this I just think is utterly cute. And the lemon didn't come with it, but the lemon was in the supermarket with its leaves still on. And I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to take that because I'm going to use it as a reference for painting a lemon. Completely off subject, but anyway, so that I thought, again, for the kitchen, onions, garlic, I thought that would be excellent. Very pleased with that. And that again was £4. Now my last two things are books, and books in that charity shop on the A40 are £1.50 for hardbacks. And if I see what I call coffee table books, really nice coffee table books, then I do buy them. And it's sort of a bit of a guilty pleasure, really, because it's a bit like buying a magazine, but it's only £1.50 because magazines are not £1.50. And I do like a nice glossy magazine, but they are so expensive, and you kind of read them once and you're done with them. So this is my equivalent of buying a glossy magazine. So this one is The Pottery Garden, and can I see who that's by? Arthur Parkinson. And it's all about Emma Bridgewater's garden at her pottery. And it's got lots of beautiful pictures in it. Let's see if I can find it. So beautiful pictures and writing about the garden throughout the season. So that's sort of a bit like buying a gardening magazine, but it didn't cost, I don't know, about £7, some like gardening magazines are. Anyway, so I'm going to read that, put it on the shelf, and then, it'll probably get redonated in a few months' time when I kind of go, well, I've sort of read everything, and yes, the pictures are pretty, but I need the space, and it'll go back to the charity shop. Then the other coffee table book that I found was Colours of Africa. And this is definitely a reference book, and I was particularly interested because it's got a whole section on Kente cloth. I think it's Kente cloth. Now, I don't want to insult anybody by pretending that I know anything about African culture. My granddad was a teacher in Africa. He was a teacher at a school that was run by the church, but this was like 1950s. And when I obviously knew him in the 70s and 80s, he had a lot of African art on his walls in his home in a kind of an old farmhouse in West Wales, which was always very kind of strange to me. And although he knew all about it, he had lots of African colleagues, and they had sort of told him about the history and the cultural significance of all the pieces that he had. I don't know anything about it. And I just saw this and I thought, my goodness, what a beautiful book, and what a fantastic chance to actually learn a little bit more about the pieces that I used to see in my granddad's house. And his wife, so my do you have a step grandmother? I suppose you do. Anyway, so his second wife, she was somebody who collected fabrics, and she had a lot of African fabrics. And I always admired them, and they were beautiful, beautiful things. So I saw this and I was just like, wow, I have to buy it. And it is full of wonderful illustrations. It's about 20 years old. It's always interesting to kind of reflect and think about, well, cultural misappropriation, I think is what they call it, isn't it? When you kind of steal from somebody else's culture. And I definitely don't want to steal from someone else's culture in my own work. But I think you can appreciate the art of another culture and just kind of see the way patterns and colours are put together, and just try and understand a little bit more about an area of the world that I kind of have a very basic knowledge of, but it's really basic. So yeah, so I thought that would be a good book, and I'm going to look forward to reading that. And that, I think, is going to end up in my reference library. Anyway, I have books that I don't get rid of, rather than that one up there. That is a book I know will go back to the charity shop. Right, so that was the little haul. Not huge. I didn't find any fabric that I was interested in working with. And yeah, you just have to keep looking, don't you? Because that's the thing about charity shops, is there's not always what you want there. But that's the joy of the hunt, isn't it? I am going to say, I guess that's it for this week. And at the moment, I've got half an ear out because the wool is on the stove, and I can actually hear when it comes up to temperature. So the wool is on the stove dyeing, and the weld dyeing video will be out middle of this week if you're watching this in real time. As ever, thank you for watching. All the links for, kind of the stuff I do will be in the descriptions below. So until next time, have a wonderful week.